Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, whenever you guys are watching this, to my lovely students. Today we're going to talk about the Enlightenment, and we have three topics we're going to deal with in this unit. We're going to talk about feudalism, which we did in our projects. We're going to talk about the Enlightenment, which is going to combat feudalism. And finally, we're going to talk about the French Revolution, which is a great example of the tension between feudalism and the Enlightenment. But let's talk a little bit about the Enlightenment here, and this is our main focus here. And I like this little image here. You got the light bulb, enlightenment, turn the light on, whatever. I thought you guys might appreciate that visual. And then here are the essential questions we're going to deal with in this brief presentation. Number one, what exactly is the Enlightenment? When did it take place? How would you define it? Who were some early enlightened thinkers? And finally, what's the long-lasting impact of the Enlightenment? I like that question. It's like a big walnut question. You got the red and gold there. Okay. Now, the years I have here is 1600 to 1800, but those are just rough estimations. I mean, the Enlightenment happened before 1600, and it's still continuing today to a large extent. But this was a time of intense political and scientific change. Now, I have up here the Age of Reason as a way to describe the Enlightenment because it's a different mindset. Prior to the Enlightenment or the Age of Reason, people in Europe tended to believe just what their priests told them. They just looked at things as, God was in control and just worked things out and created everything. And it was really above man to try to figure out the workings of nature, the universe, and human behavior. With the Enlightenment, people challenged this. There's a concept that the universe works in a logical fashion. And through scientific exploration, you could find out how the universe worked. In other words, people could figure things out, and it wasn't supernatural. It was something that could be figured out, which is going to be a major paradigm shift or a major different way of looking at things. And of course, the primary casualty of this was the Catholic Church, which was dominant in Europe at the time. Because before that, it was pretty, here's a good word, authoritarian. You just listened to your priest and you didn't question things. The Enlightenment is going to question everything, and it's going to do so in a vein of, man can figure this out. Okay, first great enlightened leader that I want to highlight is a cat by the name of Copernicus. Now, you may or may not have heard of Copernicus, and you can see that he lived quite some time before the time period that I gave for the Enlightenment, but he was absolutely crucial because he had the audacity to challenge what seemed to be obvious to everyone that he thought was just dead wrong, and that's the concept that the Earth is not the center of the solar system, but the sun is. Now, when I get up in the morning, I look up and the sun comes up on the horizon, and then later on in the day it sets in the western horizon, and it just seems like it goes in a big circle. I mean, that's what it looks like. That makes perfect sense to everyone. But what Copernicus showed through scientific observation, through the use of crude telescopes, is that the Earth was in fact orbiting around the sun and not vice versa. Now, this was a major deal because, before this, it would seem like the Earth was the center of the universe. But he created something called the Heliocentric Theory, which was the sun was the center of the solar system and the Earth traveled around it. It made the Earth a heck of a lot less important. Now, one thing I think that you could compare this to today is this concept of global warming. Now, to you and me, it might seem like global warming, is not taking place. To the naked eye or to common observation, it might seem like it's not taking place, but the vast majority of scientists are convinced that it is and have experimentation to show that it is. So this would be similar to that. Now, he got in a lot of trouble for this theory because it absolutely seemed to make the Earth less and less important, and was the first to open the door to the idea that maybe there are other worlds out there. Now, right after, well, not right after, but 100 years later, there's a character by the name of Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton is who we consider the father of physics. He believed that the universe was just this vast machine that you could figure out. And, there's an old story that he was the first to really understand the concept of gravity, which reinforced Copernicus's idea of the Earth traveling around the sun. And the story is that he was sitting there one day and an apple fell off a tree branch and hit him in the head, and he just started wondering how that could happen. And he created the first laws of motion, which is the basis of physics. Now, it wasn't just on the scientific realm. People started to apply enlightened ideas to the political realm or the social realm. And a wonderful thinker in this regard is a man by the name of John Locke, who promoted this concept of the social contract. Now, before this, everybody just believed in absolute monarchy. I mean, going back to the ancient Greeks, the ancient Greeks had democracies, but nobody knew much about the ancient Greeks in 1632 Europe. So the social contract is revolutionary in that respect because contracts are two-sided. So in this case, the ruler, the king, and the ruled, there was an agreement between the two. In other words, the ruled, the subjects, the people, they had to have their natural rights respected by the king or ruler in order to give that person their loyalty, obedience, fight in his or her army, or do work. So here's the thing. The king would respect the natural rights of the citizens. The citizens in return would give the king allegiance, obedience, their lives in warfare, their food, as they work. But never before was this concept really promoted, this idea that you just didn't do what the king said just because the king was a direct emissary of God. Very revolutionary. Now, a character comes along a little later by the name of Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Good French name. And Rousseau's going to take this concept of the social contract further and promote the concept of democracy as the best way to make this happen. In other words, he embraced the concept of the social contract, and if a ruler, a king, was an absolute monarch and wasn't democratic, there's no way that social contract, the rights of the people, could be respected. Now, Rousseau's timing is important if you look at his timing there, because he came right before a great event in world history that he helped promote. He helped push France toward revolution, which we're going to be learning about next. And it wasn't just the French Revolution. The impact of the Enlightenment is profound. It's going to encourage democratic movements around the world for centuries to come. And here you see the American Revolution, which many think the French Revolution and the American Revolution are outstanding examples of enlightened-inspired conflicts. Okay, people, hope you got the Enlightenment down.